Nice. So thank you again for the warm introduction, and it's of course a privilege to be with you guys today. Um, just for context, no, and for further introduction. So my name is Jan Tanchi. I'm currently the HR leader for Microsoft Philippines, as well as our area headquarters HR leader in Singapore. So I'm based out of the Philippines because of COVID-19. So can't travel around. Again, it's Chinese New Year's Eve, so happy Chinese New Year's Eve to everyone who is celebrating. Today, we're gonna touch on a topic that I think has become more prevalent in the industry nowadays, and it's specifically around really inclusive hiring. If you look at all organizations out there, nowadays the call towards diversity and inclusion has become more apparent than ever. And I think one of the things that us as Microsoft, from a company standpoint, really believes in is how diversity and inclusion comes to life, especially in the way we bring in talent into the organization. So I think first and foremost, just a reality check, right? Out of all the companies out there, you will see job advertisements. Normally, job advertisements would necessitate the number of years of experience of people who might want to apply for a particular role. And the interesting thing there is normally you'd have, like, let's say, an admin assistant position, but they'd expect 3 to 5 years of experience. When in fact, sometimes even fresh college graduates wouldn't fit those qualifications, but they pass. And that's really the realm of how hiring has evolved as of late. Firstly, me, I would say, in my personal experience, I'm an output of what inclusion hiring can do to a company. I'm currently 28 years old, and I got selected by Microsoft to become the HR director for Microsoft Philippines at 25 years old. And that's a testament not because of what I've done in the past or the accomplishments I've done in the past, but it's really a testament towards how do you hire in top talent based on their potential. And throughout the day, I'll be walking you guys through probably some reasons, first and foremost, why it's important to start to hire inclusively. The second principle is, as a company, what is our culture and why have we been so successful in hiring inclusively? And the third and final piece is, what does that look like operationally? How will you then frame your questions from an interview standpoint? How will the interviewer experience be like, as well as how then can you successfully land a role in another company? So first and foremost, again, if you look at the world around us today, right, it has always been evolving and will always continue to evolve. And as of late, there have been a couple of workplace trends that have popped up in terms of things that have really changed the game in terms of how we bring in people into the workplace. And I would say there are six particular trends. The first one that we all need to be cognizant of is around a skills economy. If you look at the past, probably in the past, meaning fairly recently, 2 to 3 years ago, the skill set of individuals, especially in the Philippines, around app development, data and AI, or cloud technology is far and few. However, over the past 2 years, because of the sudden wave of certifications offered by large tech companies such as Microsoft, AWS, Google, you've seen a rise in individuals who are now well versed in terms of these new technologies. And that's why nowadays it's no longer a shortage of these skill sets, but rather it being an economy, meaning companies now aggregate large numbers of individuals who have these skill sets. Fun fact, even in colleges right now, us as a Microsoft company, we've experienced certain interns who have supported us through the past couple of months who are already more technologically advanced than our own leadership team, or me myself as a leadership team member. And that's really the rise of how the talent landscape has been changing today, where it no longer matters how old you are in the industry. It no longer matters how long you've been in a particular role. What matters now are the skill sets that you continually grow. The second piece is around augmented humanity. 3 years ago, I was in another conference on behalf of Microsoft presenting the same set of slides. But the word here used to be the rise of AI, because at that time, AI wasn't a thing yet. However, now, AI has become more widely accepted across countries, especially the Philippines. especially with the recent developments and gains that we've had in terms of really seeing AI not as a technology that will eliminate jobs, but rather a technology that can, at the end of the day, really supplement and augment the human experience. The third piece, what I talked about earlier, and the central core of hiring inclusively is diversity and inclusion. In Microsoft, we have a saying, and that saying goes that diversity is when you invite someone to a dance, and inclusion is when you actually invite the person to dance. If you see companies nowadays, they normally have slogans around bringing in young talent. However, it's not enough that you bring in young talent. What's important is that each company has the cultural attributes as well as the setup so that these young talents can thrive and be given opportunities within the company to really perform, transform, and really learn from their experiences. The fourth thing, which probably all of you now, probably 60 to 70% of you are dialing in from your homes, it's around fluid and flexible. If you look at the rise of COVID-19, it has actually proven that most companies can do with a remote workforce. In the past probably year that we've been in COVID-19, actually the first 2 months even of the COVID-19 crisis, March and April here in the Philippines, we've seen more technological advancement than the past 2 years because all companies have now adopted to a hybrid workplace methodology. And the last and most important piece, of course, is a company stance. And that's one thing that I'll share to you guys later on in today's presentation as well. It's in terms of how does a company's cultural ethos or principles really supplement the whole modality of bringing in fresh talent, bringing in young talent. And the last and most resounding piece for any organization, along with any individual, to be successful in this day and age, you need to understand and have a certain degree of change agility. Because what makes you good in your job today might not be what makes you good tomorrow. Also, what makes you different today will actually be the skill set that can make you excellent tomorrow. And that's why your ability to continually learn, continually be agile towards the changing market trends, as well as changing skill sets out there, is what's critical to you being able to continually become relevant in the workspace. Now, of course, that's all nice and dandy. However, if you look at culture, diba? For you to hire inclusively, you need to have a culture that is inclusive. And for that to happen, you need to change as a company. And change is hard in any shape, way, or form. As a company, probably 6 years ago, before Satya Nadella became our CEO, I would say you'd be in a very different type of webinar today, where the person speaking to you would be a much more senior HR practitioner. However, because of the ruthlessness and the intensity by which we changed as a company in Microsoft, that's why I'm a product of that change. And that's why I'm standing in front of you. However, this cultural change that we've been on, or this journey rather that we've been on, was not automatic from day one. It took a while. Satya came in as CEO probably 7 years ago, to be exact. And his cultural changes landed towards the countries, because of course the headquarters of Microsoft is in US, it landed towards countries like the Philippines, Singapore, France, and wherever, probably around 3 to 4 years after, because it really takes a while to trickle down in any organization. And this cultural change really brought us towards one question, which is, so what does Microsoft now stand for? And what is our culture? If you look at our rebranded culture, and this is applicable not just for Microsoft, but also for those of you attending the call, because this can also relate to your personal life. It's really about this one slide. And this one slide encapsulates probably how you can continually be agile in today's day and age so that you can inclusively hire and inclusively be hired. The first step is around growth mindset. If for those of you who have studied psychology or read a lot of books, growth mindset was a term coined by a famous psychologist named Carol Dweck. And the study that she did in a particular school in Chicago was that in this school, they did not give failing marks to their students. instead of giving, let's say, a 74 or giving an F, they placed on the report card of the students, not yet. And when they compared the students who were given failing grades versus the students who were given that term, not yet, these students in the second group of the not yet group actually excelled better in the future. And that's because of the whole mindset around people allowing individuals to change, allowing people to grow. And that's the whole growth mindset methodology. It's really about how can we become learn it alls rather than know it alls. It's not about an individual knowing the most. It's not about an individual having the most set of skills, the most number of years of experience, but rather it's about the individual who has the capacity and has shown the potential to learn everything. Now, aside from having a growth mindset, what else would you need? The first thing is around customer obsession as well. If you want to be hired in a top company, if you want to be chosen, right, you need to be customer obsessed, which also relates to the customers you service. As an HR practitioner, I need to be obsessed with the organization that I support. If you are in a seller role, you need to be obsessed with, of course, the clients that you support. If you are a recruiter attending this call, that means you need to be obsessed with two things: the talent in the market, as well as the priorities of the business, so that you can combine the two things. The second piece is around diversity and inclusion, as I mentioned earlier. Normally, in companies, you would seek out a mentor. Mentors normally would be people who have much more years of experience than you. However, if you do employ a diverse and inclusive mindset, whether it be hiring, whether it be promoting, whether it be pursuing business objectives, it's really around looking around the room and trying to learn from everyone in the room. Because whether it's the new guy who literally just started yesterday or the person who has a service award in the company, there's always something to learn in between because all of us have very different experiences. The third piece, of course, this is our culture in Microsoft, the one Microsoft culture, but it's also applicable in life and in any corporate setting. If you look at the pace of change externally out there, no one individual can solve a company's problem alone. Similarly, the fastest way to get to a solution is through, of course, the support of a number of individuals so that you get to the solution faster. And that's the whole one Microsoft methodology. If you apply it to your personal life, in short, siguro in Tagalog, wag mo solohin yung problema mo. Or in other lingo, don't be a lone wolf. Try to bring others together to solve for your problem. And ideally, if you have a growth mindset and if you do these three things, that will lead you towards making a difference. And I'd say this slide is so powerful for me when I joined Microsoft because I understood why we were able to take risks on young talent. It's because we had the backbone of a culture that really supported this type of hiring. Aside from that, if you look at all your companies, you also need to look at what is your company's mission after all. Because your mission will really tell the type of individuals you'd want to bring in to the organization. For us, 7 years ago, our mission was to put a PC in every home. If you look at that mission, it's not anymore as relevant because we have a PC in front, like I'm using a laptop right now. I have my smartphone with me. I also have an Alexa device here at home. So that's like literally 3 PCs just in this one room. So therefore, we had to also pivot our mission towards this one, which is to empower every person in every organization on the planet to achieve more. And if you look at a mission so powerful as that, you also know that no matter how smart people are inside Microsoft, we can't do it alone. We need, firstly, our partners, we need our customers, and we need up and coming talent in the market, no matter what type of experience, no matter what type of background, to come to our company and to join our company, because that's really where we're able to really bring to life our exponential growth as a company. Now, that's probably the first set of slides, diba? And hopefully I didn't bore you there. This next set will be a bit more of a practical application, both as a person, for those of you who are recruiters, as a recruiter, and for those of you who are leaders of your respective organizations, also to supplement your own cultural backgrounds. A while ago, I spoke about growth mindset. And when you look at growth mindset, it's really two different things. There's fixed mindset and there's growth mindset. For lack of a better word, it's actually being a know-it-all versus being a learn-it-all. In companies, most companies today, you will award the person who knows the most and you will award the person who has done the most work, right? That's traditional logic. However, in companies as well, nowadays, there are some companies like Microsoft, where when we recognize an individual, we look at a three-circle methodology. The first circle is how well that individual has performed his or her role, which is the KPIs and all the performance metrics, right? Standard. The second circle, though, is how well has that individual helped others perform. While the third one is how well has that individual leveraged the best practices of others. If you look at that three-circle methodology, it's no longer the know-it-all that will get the high rewards or that will get hired into the company. Rather, it's the person who's willing and humble enough to say he does not know the solution and he wants to learn it all that will become successful in this company. Similarly, in most of your companies and in most of the interviews that probably you guys do or conduct, take note that in today's fast-paced world, it's very difficult to have a star performer being a lone wolf. Normally now, the best and brightest performers are individuals who have the capacity and the ability to bring people alongside them, not because they're smart, but because they're willing to say that they don't know and that they need help. To further enhance the point, no? Fixed mindset, the reason why it's quite outdated nowadays is because it creates this atmosphere where I need to look smart for my boss. I need to look smart in front of my colleagues. And that probably creates certain conflicts, creates challenges of collaboration, creates challenges in transparency versus a growth mindset where you have this innate desire to be open, to learn, to make a mistake, and to admit that you don't know. Funny story, I remember when I joined Microsoft, I was fairly new, again, 25 years old. I only had probably at the time 5 years only of experience in HR. When I joined the company and I learned about and I went to the office, I wore this suit with tie because I thought I had to impress everyone. I had to look older. I had to look more mature. Get into my first leadership team meeting, and I realized how much of a different company it actually is. So instead of trying to look mature, I instead took off the coat, took off the tie, and just told everybody in the leadership team that I actually don't know that much yet about HR. However, I'm willing to learn. So can you help me learn? And that's been my mantra since day one. And that mantra I will carry throughout my roles in the future and throughout the teams that I will lead, because that's what made me successful. And hopefully, to those of you in the call today, that's also what companies are looking out for now. It's not solely about how much you know. It's also about how much are you willing to be transparent about what you don't know. And that's what's going to land you probably the next leadership role that you're after. Now, to operationalize this further, because of course, this sounds all nice and dandy, but it's really, up in the air. If you're a hiring manager, what then will change in terms of your responsibilities? Or what are the requirements if you want to really inclusively hire? The first one is in the pre-hiring phase, even before you have an opening. Diba? You need to make what we call inclusive job descriptions. Inclusive job descriptions, of course, talk not about what the role should not be like. Instead, it talks about the potential of a particular role, the potential of who can, at bare minimum, do the role. It's not about people who have at least X years of experience. Instead, it looks at potential of talents who have already done certain sets of tasks. The next principle is you also need to look at your team before you even hire an individual. You need to understand, is the mix of my team now all senior type of individuals? Therefore, you need to try to spice that mix up by hiring in fresh blood, fresh talent who has fresh insights. The third piece is also how do you utilize your talent network? All of us have come from different companies, have met different folks in different stages of our careers. And that network is actually the best tool to utilize if you want to really try to find the best talent. And the last piece is also, how then do you promote the role in your network? If you want to really be inclusive and invite everyone into the process, then don't be scared to post on LinkedIn so that other people can see the opportunity and apply for that opportunity. Now let's say you've done that. You've done all that nice and clean. What then do you do during the interview? The first one is a suggestion is you need to have a diverse interview pool, meaning you can't have just yourself and your plus one manager. You need to also have peers of the individual in the future who will interview. You also need to have people from other departments to interview so that you get a cohesive, balanced feedback. A suggestion as well, each interviewer might also want to probably focus on one particular aspect or principle of the job that he or she will be interviewing for. So that once you do the debrief session, all of you will have a very unbiased opinion of the candidate. The next thing is that, and I've personally experienced this in Microsoft, it's no longer about, oh, you have not done this yet. It's not about that. Rather, the questions you need to ask is around what is the right attitude that this person has displayed in his past roles? Or what are the reasons why we should hire the person rather than not hire the person? And that paradigm shift towards finding reasons why this person should be hired in an interview rather than assessing bakit nga ba siya hindi fit sa role or why is he not fit to the role will also change the game in terms of different aspects of talents that you're looking at. The last piece is post-hiring, and this is probably a room for improvement for all of us, including us in Microsoft. Once a candidate has finished the whole hiring pool, and let's say he or she is not selected, I would highly suggest if you want to continue to have inclusive hiring as a company, you need to provide feedback fast. You need to provide why the person was not selected for the role and why the person has also some characteristics that might fit the role in the future. And that creates an environment where a candidate will trust you in the future. And as he or she grows in her career, they will want to apply back to your company. For those candidates who have already been selected for the role, I think there is nothing more important than crafting a very solidified and cohesive onboarding plan. And that's the responsibility of the hiring manager. If you want to bring in someone inclusively, right? Because step one is selecting a candidate that is different. That's diversity. Once a person has been selected, it's all about making it inclusive for him or her. If you want that person to feel welcomed in the company, you need to provide a holistic onboarding plan. And that's through who are the important people you need to talk to, who you need to meet in the organization, how does this organization work, and what is the easiest and fastest way to find a solution in this organization. Enabling a new hire to understand the answers to those three simple questions will allow him or her to fast track his onboarding plan and deliver results right away. And probably the last slide for me, and this is the hiring in mindset, right? What do you need to have when you want to have a hiring in mindset? The first one, and the most important piece, is look at cultural competency when you interview. That's the most important aspect. You look at how the person is accountable, how the person has displayed integrity in his past roles, how leaders coach their teams rather than tell their teams what to do, how they've cared for their teams, especially during COVID-19. The next piece is around the core competencies for the role. And you'll notice this is the tier of order of priority. You first look at culture. The next piece you look at is core competency. How has that individual collaborated with others? How does that individual display judgment calls during tough decisions? How does that individual influence for impact, or rather get stakeholders on board with his or her plan to deliver a business outcome? And that's the second most important piece. Interestingly enough, nowadays, the piece that is extra because it can be learned over time, is role competency or the technical capabilities needed to deliver a role. Let's say for HR, it's about understanding labor laws in the market. Before, that would probably be the number one ask in any interview. However, nowadays, even for me when I was hired here, that was not even a question because those things you can learn through the job over time. And there are learnings and training programs for that. And that's why it's so important nowadays that instead of just looking at an individual's capability to do a role, you need to look at how does he fit into the culture? What are the core competencies he displays to deliver a particular job? Because that's really what you cannot teach an individual. And probably that's really the ethos of inclusive hiring. If I may summarize it in one slide, no, it's really about having a more open-minded way of looking at talent, having a more open-minded way of asking the right questions, so that you're able to uncover gems or diamonds in the rough who are ready to take on bigger assignments in your organization. And here's my last slide, and this is what Satya Nadella said when he landed our new culture in Microsoft, that as a culture, we are moving from a group of people who know it all to a group of people who want to learn it all. And for me today, that's why I participated in this call also, to learn from you guys. And I hope that you learned something from that. We will share these slides with of course, the team afterwards. And I think now I'll probably move to Q&A.
All right, thank you so much for that. So many bits and pieces like that. Yeah, bits of diamonds and golden nuggets out there in this presentation. And one of the audiences was actually asking if they could get a copy of the slide. So I'm glad, yes, we will be sharing it with everybody. And there's a couple of questions. One is from Weya. She said, sometimes it's just hard to be transparent on what you don't know, considering all the competition in the market. Wouldn't the company hire you on what you can offer, how you can help the team?
So of course, at the end of the day, you need to really share as well what you've experienced in the past. Of course, that's the preliminary piece. You don't go into an interview saying, by the way, I don't know anything. That's not the way. However, an interviewer, and this has been my personal experience, even in the people we've hired in Microsoft, we hold high value towards people who have great self-awareness. So as an individual talks about his or her experiences, what he's accomplished, what she's accomplished, the moment an individual also transparently shares what he has not done or she has not done, however, supplements that as well with, but I can learn these things because of some experiences I've had in the past or because of some competencies that I have in terms of being a fast learner, then there's no problem with being transparent.
Mm-hmm. Right. Good. Really good, really good. Last question, and this is a very frequently asked question when it comes to remote, right? And what we get from recruiters, new recruiters hiring remote people, is that what would be the key questions or what would be the key qualities that they need to look for in a candidate that would make me, would that like the telltale signs that these candidates will be good remote workers?
I'd say from a remote worker standpoint, the first one is discipline. I think it's important to ask individuals what their daily routines are like, how they ensure to keep on track of, to-do lists and stuff like that. I think understanding that an individual has an innate set of principles when it comes to working discipline is important.
Mm-hmm.
The second piece also is also around your own company's cultural stance. For us at Microsoft, let's say, whenever I interview people, I never ask or even wonder whether people are credible enough to work from home or can be trusted to work from home, because at the starting gate, you already trust each other. That's the first principle. So it's really about how do you find talents then who are very empowered and very self-led individuals. I think self-leadership is probably the best way to assess whether someone is fit to work remotely. And the third piece, I challenge you. I think there are roles that can't be done remotely, but I think this frame of mind where some people can work remotely, some people can't work remotely, I think that's already a fixed mindset. That will not allow you to inclusively hire someone if you start a conversation or any recruitment process with a thinking that, oh, this candidate can't work remotely. Because immediately you're already figuring out why that person can't fit the role. If you're authentically looking to inclusively hire, you need to figure out to the best of your capabilities why an individual can work remotely, not can't.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yes, very good answers. And I love that you mentioned, like, your personal habits and the way that you discipline yourself actually says a lot, on how you can create those personal boundaries, when you're working from home, because it has a lot to do with personal boundaries. Like, how do you, turn yourself on for work, and how do you turn yourself off from work? And
Yep.
how do you say, like, I'm gonna go and work right now, deliver these, by yourself, because your manager is not gonna be there standing, right next to you. But those
Yep.
are really, really great answers, and really amazing presentation. Thank you again for doing this talk with us, Jen. And people in the audience, we will be moving towards Yvette's presentation. He is going to be talking about how to create a strategy on building a hybrid setup for your companies, and it will be really interesting. This talk with Jan is like the start of it all, because the most important part of bringing in remote people is the hiring process, choosing the right people to bring them into your company. So thank you. We'll be right back.